In today's horror thriller story, we're talking about a couple who wanted to make their romantic getaway unforgettable. But they had no idea that this trip was about to turn into the most terrifying nightmare of their lives. The story begins with Maya and her boyfriend Ryan, who book a secluded forest cabin to celebrate their relationship anniversary. They think it will be the perfect opportunity to spend some peaceful time away from the noise and crowds of the city. On the way, they get extremely hungry, so they stop at a small roadside diner. As soon as they walk inside, however, something feels off. The atmosphere is strange. People keep staring at them. No smiles, no friendly greetings, just an unsettling silence hanging in the air. Maya starts to feel uncomfortable, but Ryan brushes it off and doesn't think much of it. After finishing their meal, the couple returns to their car, but it refuses to start. No matter how many times they try, the engine remains completely dead. With no other option, they head to a nearby mechanic shop. The mechanic tells them the repairs will take quite a while. That's when a young woman named Shelley, who works there, offers to drive them to their cabin. Since it's already late at night, Maya and Ryan accept her offer. A short time later, the old cabin comes into view, hidden deep within the dense forest. The place is as beautiful as it is unsettling. There isn't another person in sight for miles, just darkness, and the sound of trees swaying in the wind. After arriving, Maya calls her younger sister and lets her know that they made it safely. What she doesn't realize is that someone is watching them from the darkness of the forest. As the night grows deeper, the couple tries to relax. Then suddenly, a loud knock echoes through the cabin. Ryan opens the door, but all he sees is darkness. A few moments later, the silhouette of a young woman appears. In a soft voice, she asks, "Is Tara home?" Ryan tells her that no one by that name lives there. Without saying another word, the girl slowly disappears back into the darkness. The couple assumes it's just some prank by a local teenager and tries to move on. But then Ryan suddenly starts feeling sick. An asthma attack begins to hit him. He searches frantically for his inhaler, but Maya suddenly remembers that it was accidentally left behind in the car. Ryan immediately heads back toward the mechanic shop to retrieve it. Now Maya is alone in the cabin. Outside, powerful winds howl through the forest. The windows rattle. The entire place feels eerie and unsettling. To calm her nerves, Maya starts a video call with her sister. Then she hears a noise outside again. At first, she thinks Ryan has returned. But this time, the knocking on the door is even louder than before. Then she hears the same voice again. "Is Tamara home?" Now Maya can clearly sense that something is terribly wrong. Slowly, she approaches the door and looks through the peephole. But suddenly, a hand covers the peephole from the outside. Terrified, Maya stumbles backward. She quickly locks the door. For a few seconds, everything goes silent. Then, without warning, violent bangs begin slamming against the door. The sound echoes throughout the entire cabin. And over again, a voice calls out, "Is Tara home?" As Maya turns around, her breath catches in her throat. The phone she had left on the table just moments ago had suddenly disappeared. Now she was starting to believe that she wasn't alone in the cabin. Panicked, Maya begins searching the entire room for her phone. After looking everywhere, she finally finds it sitting on an old shelf. But as soon as she picks it up, she starts scrolling through social media, trying to calm her nerves and distract herself. Just then, a strange sound comes from outside. It sounds like someone is softly singing in the distance. Slowly, Maya walks toward the window and peeks outside, but there's no one there. Then, without warning, the singing suddenly stops. Now strange noises begin echoing from inside the cabin itself. Sometimes it's the creaking of the floorboards, other times it's the faint sound of footsteps moving through the house. Maya goes into full panic mode. She immediately tries calling Ryan, but the call won't go through. Despite her fear, she gathers the courage to step outside and look around. But the forest is nothing but darkness and an eerie silence. There isn't a single person in sight. She returns to the cabin, lights a cigarette to calm herself down, and starts playing the piano to break the unsettling silence. But beneath the sound of the piano, she feels as if someone is slowly walking behind her. Maya quickly turns around, but nobody is there. She convinces herself that it's all in her head, just fear playing tricks on her mind. What she doesn't realize is that a masked figure can be seen standing in the mirror above the piano. A little later, Maya goes into the bathroom to freshen up. She thinks splashing some water on her face might help ease her anxiety. But the danger has already gotten much closer. Suddenly, a terrifying masked figure appears in the corner of the bathroom. Maya screams and spins around in terror, but once again, there's nothing there. Now she's completely convinced that someone is playing games with her. She rushes out of the bathroom and turns on a hairdryer. But suddenly, the power throughout the entire cabin goes out. A deep darkness swallows everything around her. Maya immediately switches on her phone's flashlight and starts searching for the fuse box. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, she hears the sound of something crashing to the floor. Maya slowly makes her way toward the living room. From the outside, everything looks normal. But the atmosphere is so unsettling that her heart is already racing. She opens the cabinet and starts searching for the main power switch. In her panic, her phone slips from her hand and falls to the floor. As she bends down to pick it up, she suddenly sees a terrifying figure standing right in front of her, wearing a doll face mask. Maya lets out a scream and runs upstairs, hiding inside the attic room. She sits trembling in the corner as the sound of footsteps outside grows closer and closer, as if someone is checking every room in the cabin. Then slowly, a shadow appears beneath the door. The doorknob begins to turn. Maya can barely breathe. But a moment later, the door opens, and it's Ryan standing there. Maya immediately tells him everything. She says that someone wearing a mask is wandering around the cabin. At first, Ryan doesn't believe her. He takes Maya downstairs, turns the power back on, and tries to calm her down. He suggests that fear and stress may be causing hallucinations. Ryan says the masked person she saw was probably just a painting on the wall that her mind misinterpreted in the dark. But the fear is still clearly visible on Maya's face. After a while, she begins to calm down and starts thinking that maybe he's right. Maybe it really was all in her head. Maybe stress was making her see things that weren't actually there. But then, the same eerie knocking echoes through the cabin once again. This time, Ryan loses his temper. Without thinking twice, he throws open the front door and storms outside, determined to teach whoever is behind it a lesson. Outside, he spots a shadowy figure standing in the distance, staring at them completely motionless. Ryan charges straight toward the figure and demands to know who they are and why they're there. But the mysterious stranger suddenly turns around and runs into the woods. Ryan assumes it was probably just some kid or prankster who got scared and fled. He returns to the cabin, and for a moment, both of them feel relieved. Hungry and exhausted, they sit down to eat. With every bite of their fast food burgers, they try to hold on to a sense of normalcy. Maya even teases Ryan about being messy. But then, a dark red drop falls from the ceiling. At first, they think it's ketchup, but when they look up, their blood runs cold. A horrifying sight hangs above them, a dead body suspended from the ceiling. At that moment, both of them completely fell apart. They finally realize this isn't a prank, and it definitely isn't a hallucination. There are real, dangerous people inside the cabin. And then, the masked figure known as Baghead suddenly smashes through the front door. Maya and Ryan immediately run into a bedroom, slam the door shut, and barricade it with furniture. Heavy footsteps begin echoing through the house, as if someone is taking complete control of the cabin. A short while later, another masked killer enters the house. Dollface and a third mysterious killer have now joined the hunt. The cabin has become a deadly trap. Suddenly, a powerful swing of an axe crashes into the bedroom door, splintering the wood. But the killers don't attack right away. It's almost as if they want to watch their victims suffer, as if fear itself is what they enjoy most. Then, after a while, the killers leave the area, and an eerie silence once again settles over the cabin. Maya and Ryan know that if they stay here any longer, survival is impossible. The only way out now is to fight back and find a way to escape. They decide to quietly sneak outside and make a run for the motorcycle parked nearby. Ryan pulls out his phone to call for help, but it had already been damaged earlier. With no options left, the two cautiously step outside. But the moment they try to start the bike, a massive explosion erupts, and the night is suddenly engulfed in flames. The motorcycle had been blown apart. Their last escape route was gone. It becomes painfully clear that these killers don't just want to murder them. They're enjoying the fear, slowly tormenting their victims before finishing the job. Suddenly, Baghead appears once again. Holding an axe in his hand, he slowly advances toward them. With no other choice, Maya and Ryan sprint back to the house and hide inside the bathroom. There, Ryan finds a razor blade, which might be the only weapon they have left. Then Maya remembers something important. The cabin's previous owner was a hunter. There might still be a shotgun hidden somewhere in the basement or storage room. The problem is that to reach the storage area, they would have to cross the living room, the very place that has become the killer's control zone. Suddenly, Maya comes up with an idea. She notices a nearby ventilation duct. Without wasting a second, the two climb inside and begin slowly crawling through the darkness. But luck still isn't on their side. Out of nowhere, Maya's hand gets caught on a sharp nail, and she lets out a painful scream. Her voice accidentally carries outside, alerting the dollface killer. Instantly, both of them freeze. They don't make a sound, barely even breathing, as if their lives have been put on pause. Fortunately, Dollface can't figure out where the noise came from and eventually walks away. Ryan quickly tends to Maya's injury, wrapping her hand tightly with a piece of cloth to stop the bleeding. After that, they somehow make their way out of the vent and rush toward the storage shed. But on the way, Ryan slips and crashes to the ground. His breathing device is knocked away and lands several feet from him. The two hurry inside the warehouse-like storage building. It is completely dark inside. They can barely see anything at all. Maya creates a small flame to light the way and tries to see where they're going. But just then, Dollface sneaks up behind them once again. Neither of them notices her and they start searching for a weapon. After looking around for quite a while, the only thing they find is an iron pickaxe, which is nowhere near enough for a fight this deadly. Ryan realizes they won't survive with just that, so he tells Maya to stay downstairs while he goes up into the attic to look for a shotgun. As soon as Ryan leaves, Maya is left completely alone. And that's when Dollface suddenly attacks her. Maya barely manages to escape, but the danger is now closer than ever. Meanwhile, Ryan finally finds a shotgun. He manages to drive the Baghead killer away. Now, they finally have a real weapon, and for the first time, they begin to believe they might actually make it out alive. The two leave the warehouse and move forward cautiously. Silence fills the air, but the danger is far from over. Suddenly, Ryan hears footsteps nearby. He immediately raises the gun and pulls the trigger without thinking. The shotgun blast echoes through the area and a body drops to the ground. Ryan feels relieved. He thinks he has finally killed one of the killers. But when he walks closer, the truth completely shatters him. The person he shot isn't wearing a mask. The tools lying nearby and the truck parked next to him make it obvious that he wasn't a killer at all. He was their landlord. Ryan is devastated. He has just killed an innocent man. And now there's an even bigger problem. The gunshot has echoed across the entire area, meaning the killers now know exactly where they are. The two quickly jump into the landlord's car and try to escape. But suddenly, the Baghead killer slams into the vehicle at full speed. The car crashes, and the engine dies instantly. Maya manages to crawl out through the window, but Ryan gets trapped inside. His leg is wedged between the steering column, and he can't free himself. Ryan tells Maya to run and save herself while he stays behind to face the Baghead killer alone. In the darkness of the night, the killer suddenly disappears. Ryan somehow drags himself out of the wrecked car in terrible condition. Meanwhile, Maya is running through the forest for her life. But Dollface is relentlessly chasing her. Her breathing grows heavier, and her fear keeps rising. With every step, death feels closer. Desperate to survive, Maya suddenly comes up with an idea. She hides herself beneath a pile of dry leaves. Dollface walks right past her without noticing. A few moments later, everything becomes quiet again. Maya slowly steps outside and tries to make an emergency call on her phone. But her voice is barely audible, and the signal is extremely weak. The police can't clearly understand what she's saying. Even so, somehow her location gets traced, and she receives assurance that backup is on the way. Terrified, Maya starts searching for Ryan because he is now her only hope. But suddenly, Dollface attacks from behind, knocks Maya unconscious, and drags her back to the same terrifying cabin. Meanwhile, Ryan is running through the woods, desperately calling out Maya's name. Hearing his voice, both Baghead and Dollface immediately go on alert. A moment later, Dollface tracks down the source of the voice. But Ryan is ready this time. He suddenly pulls out a gun, grabs her, and demands to know where Maya is. However, Dollface remains completely calm. There is no fear on her face, only a strange, unsettling smile. She casually throws her weapon to the ground and starts provoking Ryan. Her attitude makes it obvious that she's just stalling for time, as if she's waiting for someone else to arrive. And sure enough, in the very next moment, Baghead appears out of nowhere and launches a brutal attack on Ryan, knocking him unconscious. Sometime later, both Ryan and Maya are brought back to the cabin. They are tied to chairs, completely helpless. Surrounded by fear, pain, and despair, they look at each other and begin sharing their true feelings through tears. Ryan believes this might be his last night alive, so he tells Maya something shocking. He asks her to marry him. Crying, Maya nods and says yes. Tears fill her eyes as she accepts his proposal. But then, Baghead suddenly steps forward and, without a second of hesitation, plunges a knife into Ryan's stomach. The entire room falls silent. Maya's scream echoes through the darkness as Ryan collapses in agony. The attack is so sudden and brutal that Maya falls to the ground and her vision slowly begins to fade. All around her, there is nothing but darkness and pain. Just as Baghead and the other masked killers are about to deliver the final blow, police sirens suddenly roar throughout the forest. The moment they hear the sirens, the killers realize that their game is finally over. All three masked murderers immediately jump into their vehicle and speed away from the scene. At that exact moment, police cars enter the forest. The two vehicles pass incredibly close to one another, but the killers manage to escape. A short time later, the police finally reached Maya and Ryan. Both of them are rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and somehow they survive. But the memories of that horrifying night stay with them forever. And that's where this story comes to an end. Or does it? Because the terror of that cabin is far from over. If you want to find out what happens next, you'll have to watch part 2.